The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, emerged in the aftermath of World War II. It lasted roughly from 1947 to 1991. The two superpowers, despite having been allies against Nazi Germany, harbored deep suspicions and ideological differences. The US, a capitalist democracy, and the USSR, a communist state, found themselves on opposing sides of a divided world. The seeds of the Cold War were sown in the closing years of World War II. Disagreements over the future of post-war Europe, particularly the fate of Germany, created a rift between the former allies. The Yalta and Potsdam conferences, intended to ensure a peaceful transition, instead exposed the growing divide between East and West. The Soviet Union, having endured a brutal invasion by Germany, sought to establish a buffer zone of friendly states in Eastern Europe. This, coupled with the US's determination to contain the spread of communism, set the stage for decades of mistrust and rivalry. At the heart of the Cold War lay a fundamental clash of ideologies: capitalism versus communism. The United States championed capitalism, emphasizing individual liberty, free markets, and democratic governance. The Soviet Union, in contrast, promoted communism, advocating for a classless society with state control over the means of production. Each superpower believed its own system to be morally superior and universally applicable. This ideological conviction fueled their rivalry, transforming it into a global struggle for hearts and minds. Both sides engaged in extensive propaganda campaigns to win over the world's population. The US sought to portray itself as a beacon of freedom and opportunity, while the Soviet Union presented itself as a champion of the working class and a bulwark against Western imperialism. The Cold War was characterized by a state of constant tension and the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. This period witnessed numerous crises that brought the world to the brink of war. One such crisis was the Berlin blockade from 1948 to 1949, where the Soviet Union attempted to starve West Berlin into submission by cutting off all land access to the city. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world even closer to nuclear war. The Soviet Union's placement of nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, was met with a US naval blockade of the island. For 13 tense days, the world held its breath as the two superpowers stood on the precipice of nuclear war. The crisis was ultimately averted through a combination of diplomacy and restraint, but it served as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the nuclear age. The Cold War was not confined to the halls of power or the battlefields of proxy wars. It profoundly impacted the lives of ordinary citizens across the globe. The constant threat of nuclear war cast a long shadow over everyday life. Children grew up practicing duck and cover drills in school. Families built bomb shelters in their backyards. The fear of nuclear annihilation permeated popular culture, reflected in books, films, and music. Beyond the existential dread, the Cold War fueled suspicion and paranoia. Governments on both sides engaged in extensive surveillance of their own citizens, fearing infiltration by enemy agents. The Cold War also led to a global arms race, diverting vast resources away from social programs and economic development.